YouTube crew, what is going on? And welcome back to another video. Now with the Warzone Season 2 update today, I wanted to take a few minutes to go through the best settings for Rebirth that will allow you to get more kills and get more wins so that you can get off to a really good start this season. Let's get into it. So today I'm going over the best interface, audio, controller, and graphic settings for Rebirth. Now, before we jump in here, I left you sections down below so that you can easily fast forward to the next section if you want. But let's go ahead and start off with our interface here. And when we talk about interface, there's 4 settings that I want to address. Minimap shape and rotation, and then horizontal and vertical bounds, which are crucial, and I don't think people are using these enough to their advantage. Now, with minimap shape and rotation, this has to be square and enabled. Square gives you more area on the minimap, and your rotation makes it much easier to actually read. Now, with our horizontal and vertical bounds here, most people actually have these set to 100, which is fine because, you know, at the end of the day, it opens up the screen a little bit, but notice how far out the minimap is to that top left corner, and same thing with your ammo here. I actually prefer to go all the way down to 0, and the reason being is the minimap is so crucial on Rebirth that when I get a kill, I don't want my eyes to have to move that far. I know it's a minuscule difference between 100 and 0 here, but it is much easier to read when it's closer to the center of the screen, and it's not really obstructing my field of view at all. It's not really getting in the way of anything, so in my opinion, I feel that 0 is best. Now, you can go in the middle somewhere, you could go 50, but again, 0 is the best for me. Now let's talk about our audio settings. A lot of discussion about whether boost high is better or boost low is better. Here's the truth for you. It really depends on your headset. You have to try out both boost high and boost low. And I really discovered this after one of my friends who runs boost low put on my headset and he was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense why you run boost high. Footsteps sound so clear. So it really depends on the way your headset is set up. So try out boost high and boost low and really figure out which one makes footsteps sound clearer. Now, in terms of your master volume, this is your global volume, which I had wrong for a long time. I thought global volume meant basically the volume of everything, but it doesn't. It is the volume of certain things that are going on around you. The helicopter flying in, you know, precision airstrikes coming in, cluster strikes coming in, bullets flying around. So I actually turned this down because we've all had that situation where you're fighting somebody in a building, you're listening for footsteps, and that precision airstrike comes in and you cannot hear anything at all. So I turned this down to 35. It's got a good volume in terms of, you know, hearing precision clusters and bullets as well. But ultimately, it's not too loud to hear footsteps. Music volume is all the way down at 0. Dialogue volume, this is going to be enemy flying in overhead, enemy UAV overhead, certain things that are crucial to hear, but I don't want them to be shouting in my ear, so I have this set at 55. It's a good balance. Effects volume definitely has to be at 100. Cinematics volume doesn't matter. Hit markers, that's all preference. I actually put them on Modern Warfare hit markers, although one thing I would say is definitely have your hit markers on. I had them off for a while, and I turned them back on. It actually does make a little bit of a difference. I don't know why, but it does. Next up, I want to scroll down to our voice chat. Obviously, we want to have that enabled. Let's go to voice chat volume and microphone volume. This is really all kind of preference, and it really, again, depends on your headset. You don't want to be shouting in your friend's ears, so make sure you have that at a reasonable level. This is going to depend on what your microphone's at, and voice chat is you don't want your teammates being too loud, so if you have to turn them down a little bit, make sure you can hear them, but you don't want, again, you don't want your teammates shouting in your ear while you're trying to listen for footsteps. Now, in terms of our war tracks as passenger, please disable these. Now, we're talking very rare situations that we're going to be in a vehicle in Rebirth, but just disable them. You don't need to listen to music while you're driving around. Now let's talk about controller settings because I know a lot of you want to know about controller settings. And I want to talk about button layout first. First thing I would suggest is flipping this. Unless you have digital triggers, you should be shooting with your bumpers. It's going to make your input time a lot less when aimed down sight and shooting, so it's going to make it much easier. But in terms of our button layout, if you have a controller with paddles or you play claw, you should be playing either default or tactical flipped. And the reason being is it really just depends on how you want to slide. For default, it's going to be B, and same thing with paddles. For tactical, it's going to be your right stick. That's a total preference thing for you. But ultimately, what we're looking for with button layout is to keep our right thumb on the right stick as much as possible, which, by the way, I'm doing a full movement guide tomorrow, so make sure you check that out as well. Full Rebirth movement guide. But now let's talk about a normal Xbox or PlayStation controller. If you're on a normal Xbox or PlayStation controller, what you should be running is bumper, jumper, tactical flipped. Very easy reason why. Crouch prone slide is your right stick. Left trigger is your jump. You can slide cancel. You can jump peek corners. You can drop shot. You can do everything that you need to do movement-wise while keeping that thumb on the right stick. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's what I would suggest. Now, in terms of our dead zone, let's talk about dead zone here for a second and how to fix stick drift because a lot of people are dealing with this. Dead zone is basically what is necessary for your sticks to move. So when it comes to our right stick, notice how much stick drift I have right here. This is just a result of using my controller a lot, especially with, sliding with the right stick. Notice how much stick drift I have, which is a problem when I go to ADS and my crosshairs are moving. So not only am I fighting recoil, I'm also fighting my dead zone. So the easy way to fix this is to basically just keep pushing it up, just try it out, start out at 0.05, which I actually think is the default. So we'll go up to 0.1, my stick is still moving. We'll go up to 0.14, my stick is still moving a little bit. Now, I know my ideal dead zone is 0.16, but that's how you fix that stick drift. Now, in terms of our max, let's leave that at 0.99. So next up, let's talk about sensitivity. And I get asked all the time, Joe, what is the best sensitivity run? And the truth is, I'm going to keep it totally real with you. There is no best sensitivity to hit more shots. It's really about comfort. It's really about feel. It's really about how precise you can be with that right stick. We just need to figure out how to find what works best for you. Now, for my PC players, I would recommend somewhere between 5.5 and 8.8, somewhere in that range. A lot of pro players are on 5.5 or 6.6. I like to run 7.7 just because it's what feels best for me. Allows me to play a little bit quicker around when I'm not ADSing and I'm just kind of running and I can kind of see more. Now, for my console players, I would actually recommend going a little bit higher than this. Reason being is, no, it doesn't solve the FOV disadvantage. I get it. But what it does allow you to do is play a little bit snappier. So instead of just having your screen be like this and you roaming around slow, you can play kind of back and forth and play a little bit snappier to really see what you can find. When I was on console, I was at a 12-12 for a lot of the time. I was even up as high as a 15-15 at one point. So start out at like an 8-8, see how that feels, potentially go up to a 10-10, and really see what works best for you. Now let's talk about custom sensitivity per zoom. This has to be on. 4x and above is really your snipers. 3x to low zoom is really going to be your ARs and your SMGs. Now, I always recommend, and what most people do is, the higher sensitivity you go, the lower your ADS sensitivity multiplier. That's just kind of how it's easier to control. If you're at a 771, that means your sensitivity is crazy when you're ADS, and we don't want that. We want to be able to be precise with the right stick and have it feel kind of a little bit slower when we're ADS. At least that's what most people naturally want to do. So I have mine at a 77.77. Again, the higher up you go, the lower I would recommend. 55.9, 77.75, 10.65, somewhere in that range. And again, just try out different ones. And you don't even have to try out with people, right? Just shoot a wall and see how easily you can control that recoil. That's the easiest way to figure out. Right here, this is 77.77. Look how tight that is, right? That is all upper torso shots that I can easily hit because I'm able to control that recoil. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is your numbers don't have to be equal. I talked about this with somebody in my coaching program the other day, that your numbers don't have to be equal. You can run a 77.5. A lot of people, what they tend to do, and I see a lot of players who are struggling to hit shots do this, especially upper torso, is when they're aiming, they tend to over pull down. So you have two options here. You can either really practice and fix that, or you can just bump this down a little bit. Like, you can be a 7.5. This way you can control that vertical recoil a little bit easier. That's really just trying to figure out what works best for you. So play around with it. If you notice that you're missing shots because you're over pulling down with your vertical stick or the up and down, go ahead and adjust it down a little bit. That is perfectly okay. Nobody said that these numbers have to be equal. Now, in terms of the rest of our controller here, things that we're looking at, aim response curve type, we want to be dynamic. Controller vibration, definitely disabled. There's no reason to have this on. I don't want the controller vibrating in my hand. That's only going to add another dimension of things that I got to worry about. Aim assist is going to be standard for my PC players. Make sure you have scale aim assist with FOV disabled. Weapon mount shared, ADS and melee. Let's talk about ADS behavior. We want that to be on hold. This way we don't toggle it. We just hold it. Contextual tap for use reload behavior. This basically means that all I have to do is tap to reload my gun. I don't have to hold X, makes it a lot quicker. What contextual tap also means is all I have to do to actually pick something up off the ground is, again, tap X. A lot of people have this on, tap to reload, where you tap it to reload, but you still have to hold it to open a crate. No, we want contextual tap. We want it to be super easy to open crates and to reload. Slide behavior, I'm doing a full movement guide. As I mentioned, tomorrow we're going to be talking more about this specific settings, but we want this to be on tap. This way we can easily slide around. We don't have to worry about holding it. It's just super quick to slide, cancel, slide, and then, of course, if we hold it, then we can drop shot. In terms of automatic tac sprint, I'll cover that a little bit more tomorrow, but I have mine on automatic tactical sprint. And the last thing with controller is our parachute auto deploy. Disable this. There's no need for this to be on absolutely whatsoever. You only get the auto deploy one time. So as soon as you jump from the plane and pull your chute, it now disables the auto deploy. So you might as well turn it off to begin with and get to the ground a little bit quicker. Let's go ahead and wrap up with graphic settings here. Real quick, screen refresh rate is going to be 240. This should match your monitor. It also should be, you should try to get a monitor that can handle your actual frames per second. So here I'm running about 180 frames. My 240 monitor can easily handle that. Display mode is going to be full screen. Render resolution's at 100. We're going to sync every frame disabled. We don't want the input lag that comes with having this enabled. Yes, this causes a little bit of screen tearing, as you can see here, but it's well worth it for not having input lag. Custom frame limit, I'm running unlimited here. I don't want to limit my frames at all. And then we have enabled plus boost and NVIDIA highlights disabled. Now, in terms of our quality here, FOV, I'm running 116. This is just something that I have found to be a preference thing. 120 feels a little bit too much. 116 has really been a sweet spot. Camera movement, we want to have on the least right here at 50%. We don't want our camera moving that much if we can at all avoid it. And let's go ahead and quickly run through all of these other quality components for my PC players. Texture resolution low, texture filter anisotropic low, particle quality low, bullet impacts and sprays enabled, although you can easily disable that as well. That really doesn't make a huge FPS difference. Tessellation disabled, dismemberment and gore disabled, on-demand texture streaming is going to be disabled. Filmic strength and film grain both at 0. We want to turn NVIDIA DLSS off and disable that. Anti-aliasing off. Depth of field, weapon motion blur, world motion blur. Super important here. Make sure all 3 of these are disabled. That is a huge difference right there when spinning, when it comes to seeing people, right? If there's somebody in this window, you could lose them because of how blurry it is. So make sure you have world motion blur and weapon motion blur disabled. Then we're going to go to shadow and lighting, which is super crucial for better FPS here. Shadow map resolution is low. Cache, spot shadows, and cache sun shadows. I think a lot of people actually have these disabled. You definitely want to have these enabled. Particle lighting is going to be low, direct X-ray tracing disabled, ambient occlusion disabled, and SSR, screen space reflection disabled. Now, I'm going to go ahead and link a video down in the description below for my NVIDIA highlights, my NVIDIA filters to make my game look super pretty. I hope you found today's video helpful. Go dominate on Rebirth. Let's get better today, and I will see you tomorrow.